Alright, so now that you've finally installed all the software, it's time to configure Android Studio so that we have the optimal experience when we're developing Flutter apps. So first things first, go ahead and start up Android Studio. And you should see this welcome screen here. And we're going to click on Start a New Flutter Project. And we're just going to select the default Flutter application. We're going to leave the project name as the default name, Flutter_app, or you can rename it to whatever you wish. This is just going to be a demo. We're just going to use this as a blank canvas. Then, if you want to change the place where you want to create your project, so currently by default, it's created under a folder called Android Studio Projects. Now, if you want to change that, then go ahead and click on that little icon and you can select whichever folder you want to create your project in. Now I'm going to leave mine as the default. I'm going to leave the description and then we're just going to click next. And then it's going to ask you for a company domain. So that means that if you have a company website, for example, ours is appbrewery.co, then go ahead and just type that in there. Now, if you don't have a company, then just change this to your name. So it could be angelau.com. As long as this entire line can uniquely identify your app on the App Store, then that's fine. So I'm going to change that back to our company domain. And then we're going to go ahead and click finish, and you're going to leave everything else as it is. We'll talk about the different options a little bit later on. For now, we just want to get set up and configure our Android Studio. Now, the first thing we're going to configure is the appearance of Android Studio. So especially if you're not used to working with Android Studio, there's a couple of things that I would recommend to change to its appearance. And the first thing is that the default appearance is this kind of white background. And I don't know about you, but I tend to find it easier to have a little bit more contrast in the code so that I can read the text with less effort. And so we're going to change the theme to have a dark background. And to do that on a Mac, you would go to Android Studio and click on Preferences. And if you're on Windows, you're going to go to File and you're going to click on Settings. And both of these things will take you to the same destination, which is the Preferences window. And over here, if you select on Appearance and Behavior, and then click on that drop down and go to Appearance, you can change the theme. So we're going to change the theme from light to dark, which is also called Darkular in Android Studio. And if you go ahead and click Apply, you can see the changes applied everywhere. So basically you have this dark menu system and dark windows. Now, if you're running Android Studio on a Mac and you're running an operating system that is macOS Mojave or later, then you can also select this little tick box that allows you to have dark window headers as well. So everything becomes black essentially, which is quite nice because it means that all the text is a lot more contrasty. And I like to code at night a lot, so it really helps my eyes. Now, the next thing we're going to do to help our eyes a little bit while we're coding is we're going to change the font size. And to do that, we're going to go into the editor and we're going to click on the drop down list and go to font. Now here, you want to change the font size to around 18. And this just means that the text is just a little bit larger. And after a little while coding, your eyes will start to get tired and it just makes it that much easier. And feel free to fiddle around with the appearance as much as you like, but these are two things that I find really helpful. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up some of the behavior of Android Studio, especially relating to the Flutter plugin. Again, bring up your preferences pane, however you do it. If you scroll down to languages and frameworks and expand that, you'll see that we've got the settings for Dart and Flutter. Now, these are here because we installed the Flutter and Dart plugins when we installed Android Studio. Now, there's just a few things I want you to check while you're here. Make sure that the checkbox for Perform Hot Reload on Save is checked. And also make sure that under the general section, that format code on save is also checked. And then you can go ahead and click OK. So this just means that every single time we hit save, either through File and then clicking on Save All, or as you can see over here, we have a little shortcut, which is on Mac, Command S, which just does the saving. And when we hit Command S, it will just reload our app and reformat our code. So that means that if I messed up a lot of my tabbing or a lot of my indentation, or I haven't really been paying attention to how neatly I've been formatting my code, as soon as I go ahead and click save, then Flutter will go ahead and reformat everything for me to make it look pretty, but more importantly, make it easier to see what's actually going on in the code. Now that we're done with the behavior of the Flutter plugin in Android Studio, the final thing we're going to configure is the key mapping. And the key map is simply just a really good way of binding shortcuts on the keyboard to anything you use frequently. Now, most developers will have personal preferences as regarding key mapping, and you'll have to monitor what are the things that you use very frequently and to try and save time or just make it easier for yourselves by binding a keystroke to it. So pretty much anything that you see in the menus. So for example, if I wanted to go ahead and create a new Flutter project, I would go to File, New Flutter project. Now, that kind of took a while, right? What if I could simply have a shortcut that does that? Well, you can. If you go into, again, the Preferences window and go into Key Map, then we can go ahead and change the key bindings. Now, the easiest way is to simply search for what it is that you want to bind a key to. So I want to make a shortcut for new Flutter project, and it's usually a good bet just typing in what it is that you see in the menu, the exact words, and it should come up. So you can see here that in the main menu, when I go to File, New Flutter project, there's actually no keys bound to this particular action. So let's go ahead and right click on that and then click on Add Keyboard Shortcut. And now we're going to use our keyboard to type in the shortcut that I want. Now, if I wanted to, for example, use Command F to bind this shortcut to this action of creating a new Flutter project. So on Windows, that would be Control F, and on Mac, that's Command F. But you can see that I get a little warning here, and it says that this keystroke, Command F, is already assigned to find. And we know that from using the computer, Command F or Control F pretty much everywhere is for find. So I don't recommend changing this behavior inside Android Studio. It usually makes it very, very confusing. So try to come up with a keystroke that is not bound to something already. So let's go ahead and change this. So let's just click on this box and type in a new shortcut. So I'm going to go for Command Shift F. And you can see I no longer get a warning because this shortcut isn't used for anything else. So I'm going to set it to mean that I can create a new Flutter project when I hold down Shift Command and F. So let's go ahead and click OK. And you can see that's added in here. And now when I click Apply and OK, and I hold down Command, Shift and F, you can see I create a new Flutter project. So as you go along using Android Studio and developing, you'll come across things that you do very, very frequently. And it's in those moments that you can go into the key map and add shortcuts as you need. So I'm going to leave that customization to you sometime down the line when you find yourself wanting some shortcuts. And the final thing to mention on the key map is that whenever you go for something in the menu, say, for example, I want to create a new Flutter project, or I want to create a new Dart file, you can see the key bindings that already exist for it. And if there's nothing next to it, then that means it's completely blank and you can set up your own version. When you see a menu item that you often use, you can simply just learn the existing shortcut for it, or you can override it and bind your own shortcut. It's completely up to you. And this really is more about your convenience and your preferences rather than any sort of hard and fast rule. That's all we need to do in order to configure Android Studio before we can get started. Now, you'll notice that Android Studio has a lot of tiny buttons and a lot of functionality, and it's a really, really powerful editor. So in the next lesson, I want to take you on a guided tour of Android Studio for Flutter development. So for all of that and more, I'll see you there.